All right, everybody. Thank you for coming today to listen to me talk about carbohydrates. I want to make it clear, I am not the person to, I have people tell me, well, I won't come and see a nutrition person because they'll take away my bread, or they'll take away my cupcakes, or they'll make me eat salads all the time. Our whole purpose here is just to provide education to you. You're in charge of your life and what you choose to eat or what you choose not to eat. So that's the whole purpose of this, is to let you know and you decide, because you're in control. So everybody has the handout and you have a pen. Everybody knows everybody, I think, pretty much. So we won't do introductions at this point. So let's get going. So what is a carbohydrate and why? All right. Carbohydrates are all sugars, starches, and fiber that are found in fruits, grains, vegetables, and milk products. So they're found in a wide variety of food. And carbohydrates are our body's preferred fuel source, and they are necessary for life. So carbohydrates are needed for a variety of glucose is needed for a variety of metabolic activities that go on in our body. So you could not live if you did not get some kind of form of carbohydrate in on a regular basis. But the problem with carbohydrates is they are not all created equal. So they're broken out into simple, or I prefer to call them fast digesting. I think that's a little bit more understandable in people's minds. And then complex or slow digesting. And these two terminologies are what you're seeing more and more out in the nutrition field, because I think it's easier to understand that. So the one thing you have to remember is all carbohydrates are ultimately broken down into glucose, your body's preferred fuel source, either to be used as that or to be stored for later on. And that's where you get into what you choose to eat. So I want to talk a little bit about the structure of carbohydrates, because that impacts what they do in your body and how we break them down and absorb them. So carbohydrates are classified by how they're structured. They are called saccharides, which is from the Latin word saccharus. I'm so glad I took Latin back many, many years ago. It's helped me in my career. So how you describe carbohydrates is they're links like in a chain fence, or links like in a chain. So one link is a monosaccharide, which is an example is honey. Then you could have two sugars linked together, or disaccharides that are table sugar as an example, or you can get longer links, more complex links of 10 or more of these glucose molecules linked together that can either be straight or they can be branched and complicated looking. The longer and more complicated they are, the slower they break down in your body. So some examples of these are called polysaccharides, or breads, vegetables grown in the ground, are two of pasta, those two kind of things. So the chemical structure, so how these links are put together and how many there are, the chemical structure affects how the carbs behave when we eat them, and as well as when we cook them. So think about if you do the cooking. So think about the different types of potatoes that are out there. There are some potatoes that are great for making mashed potatoes. They're light and fluffy. They are shorter links. Then there's the other kind of potatoes that, if you've ever used them to make mashed potatoes, they come out like glue. They're real sticky, and potato salad will do that. You'll be trying to make potato salad and it'll turn into mashed potatoes because of the types of starches that are in there. So just to know, I wanted to go over that briefly so you understood how they affect your body. So stick with me on this, because I think this is important to know so that you can understand what choices to make. So all digestion of carbohydrates begin in our mouth, okay? When you chew your food, the digestion's starting right there. So you need to eat slowly and to chew your food well to let the digestion begin. So you swallow that down, it goes through your stomach, nothing really happens in your stomach your stomach's whole purpose is the high acidic environment to make sure there's no bugs or pathogens in there. And then your carbohydrate gets on into your small intestines, and that's where a lot of absorption and further breakdown occurs. So once it gets out of your small intestines, it goes up and it has to pass the general in the body, which is the liver. The liver has to direct everything where it goes from there forward. So the energy, so what I want to stop and talk about here real quick is we store our broken down carbohydrates either in our liver or in our muscles that are in our body. So your liver has a little suitcase in it, and then each of your muscles have these little suitcases. This is the easiest way to picture this. So when glucose gets stored, it gets put in the suitcase down here. When this one's full, then it gets put out into your muscles. And there's where exercise and how you eat your carbohydrates is a real key role at that point. So imagine, and this really, there's not a whole lot of storage availability for what is called glycogen, which is the stored form of glucose, in these suitcases. So once the suitcases are full, anything else gets put out and stored into the fat on our bodies. So if you consume more carbs than your body needs, and your liver senses that, then the excess will be converted into fat and stored in your cells and around your organs, okay? That's the bad fat. That's the kind of fat that will kill you. So our body likes to tightly control our blood sugar, and it does this through our insulin response that's released from the pancreas. And it moves about an equivalent of 20 grams an hour through our body, or one piece of fruit, okay? So if our blood sugar remains high after the liver and the muscle storage is full, our body will continue to work on this glucose because our body kind of senses glucose as a toxin. So it keeps trying to break it down, and there's several different ways it can break glucose down. And I found this very interesting. We think that the carbohydrates put the fat on us, but what goes on is our body keeps metabolizing on those. Any dietary fat that is also consumed is what goes to storage, okay? So that's why it's very important, and we'll get to this a little bit later, how your carbohydrate intake and your fat intake needs to work opposite of each other, okay? So I wanted to diagram, to make this a little bit clearer, what goes on in our body. So here's our cell wall, all right? And we take in food. So and when we take in food, like I said, all of our food gets broken down into glucose. So you have all this glucose floating around in your bloodstream, all right? So here's Mr. Pancreas down here, and he starts sending out insulin, all right? Because your body senses it wants to tightly control the glucose that's out there because it senses it to be a toxin. So your pancreas releases your insulin, and it goes out into your bloodstream as well. So in every cell is a nucleus, okay, which is like central control. So what it does is it, on the wall, the cell membrane, are what they call receptor sites, all right? Insulin holds the key to open your cells to accept the glucose and take it in for energy, all right? So insulin lands here, starts the response for your nucleus to send out the little glucose receptors over here. And what they do is they pick up and start pulling the glucose into your body to be used, or into your cell to be used as energy. Okay, so everybody's heard of diabetes. You're seeing that diabetes is on the rise in our country, and obesity. So that mechanism is broken somehow in people with diabetes because they don't have enough insulin to pull all this glucose within their cells, and it stays outside their body. All right, I'm going to stop right there. Any questions? Okay, so our bodies are wonderful, wonderful creations. So now that we understand where insulin comes from, what food does, and our glucose response. Let's talk a little bit about, and I gotta put my glasses on so I can see my notes, muscular activity or exercise, and why exercise helps us to stay metabolically healthy. So we talk about your muscles, and your muscles take in and store glycogen, and your liver does as well. But our fat tissues can as well too. So glucose uptake and insulin sensitivity, which is being able to use your insulin to pull your glucose in your cells, is optimal after exercise, all right? So that's when your body has to replete those glycogen stores that have been depleted by exercise. So depending on the type of exercise you're doing is how far down those glycogen stores will go. So if you are just, take a person who walks, and you're just out and you walk. Walking is good for you. It causes muscular contraction, but that's not as intense as taking a class like we do here. And you get your heart rate up and your breathing up and all of that. That's when your muscles can best utilize the glycogen that comes from your carbohydrate intake, okay? So it's really, that's why weightlifting or resistance training is great for metabolic activity and to help you to lose weight. It's one of the best exercises you can do because of the effect that goes on inside of your body with your muscles. All right, got any questions about that? All right, you guys looked a little stunned.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Why do we sometimes interchangeably use starch for sugar? And
It's just the way, once again, starches are more complex links together, and a sugar is one.
So it's really just the same.
Right, it's how that is structured, and that's the only reason. And I think it makes it simple because if you had to look at a piece of food and understand that that's like 15 links of a sugar or glucose molecule as opposed to looking at something else and thinking that's one. That would be too complex. So I think people just blend those terms together.
Okay.
So, all right. So I wanted to talk about added sugar in our diet. This is an average American meal. All right. So, and I don't think it looks too bad. So, Honey Nut Cheerios with soy milk and a glass of orange juice. That's pretty standard breakfast. I don't see, anything. I personally don't eat that way, but this is what a standard American diet looks like. And then you stop and you get a Starbucks Grande Frappuccino with, light. You can even say light, whatever they put in those, soy or whatever. Nutrition bar as a snack. And then for lunch, you have a chicken wrap with a small sweet tea. And then you have a can of Slim Fast for your snack in the afternoon when you're kind of hitting that crash after having that sweet tea at lunch and your blood sugars are bottoming out. And then you go home and for dinner you have stir fry with sweet and sour sauce, a salad with French dressing and a bottle. And then you got to have your TV snack, a bowl of, I'm doing well, low-fat ice cream or frozen yogurt. I think I tried. Guess how many grams of sugar?
145.
More than that. There's probably that much in the Frappuccino.
This is over 224 grams of added sugar. Okay?
I don't have Honey Nut Cheerios. I don't drink orange juice.
Okay, so when we think back,
Well, let's think about how much do you have to leave.
what happens when we think back and we talk about where our suitcases are in our bodies, and this person didn't even, they just worked. They didn't have time to exercise, so they've sat all day. Say they sit at a desk. So they've had no muscular contraction, they've had no kind of activity, and they've taken in 224 grams of added sugar. Okay? What's that doing to their liver? And what's that doing in their bloodstream? What's it doing to the pancreas? So, I just wanted to point that out. I think that that's kind of eye-opening. So now we're going to get to the crux of it. So let's talk about fast digesting carbohydrates. All right, 1 to 2 links of glucose. Remember, go back, we talked about the links. They break down rapidly. They enter our bloodstream, raising our blood sugar, spiking it, and causing insulin production within our body. So when it comes to eating carbohydrates, what's your goal? All right, this is what you want to think about when you're looking at this. What am I trying to achieve? Because based on your goal, the best time for most people is right before or right after a workout to replenish those glycogen stores or those suitcases that are in your muscles. All right? Fast digesting carbs are typically low in fiber. We'll talk a little bit about fiber in a minute. So sources, natural whole food sources, which is what we want to eat, are white rice, white potatoes, bananas, grapes, watermelon, peaches, the tropical fruits, that's pineapple, and those types of things, instant oats, dates, dried fruits, white pasta, peas, and carrots, all right? But the biggest part of fast carbohydrates out in the world, and that most people are eating, are the overly processed and packaged ones. Candy, cupcakes, corn chips, potato chips, pretzels, fruit juice. If you look between these and these, the first thing that stands out to my mind is there is absolutely no fiber in here. Absolutely no nutrients, no antioxidants, nothing to help our body in any way other than to please your pleasure center in your brain is what they're doing. All right, these at least have a smidge of fiber in them, but they contain vitamins and minerals, things that your body can use for energy. All right, and it can use to repair and replenish the stores that you're taking in. All right, so on that note, we'll move over to complex or slow digesting carbohydrates. So these are the longer chains of glucose. They break down slower, enter our bloodstream in a more controlled manner, all right, and then releases their energy gradually over the day, not all at once, and you get those, you know, those where you're just crashed after lunch because I need more sugar. Based on your goals, once again, most everybody needs to focus half their plate on these types of complex carbohydrates or slower digesting, all right? Or it should be the majority of your intake in a day. They're high in fiber, they're loaded with vitamins, antioxidants, phytochemicals, all that good stuff that our body needs. They provide satiety and they balance your blood sugar rather than cause this kind of effect in your body that the fast digesting carbohydrates will do. All right. Whole food examples of these are your berries, apples, pears, spinach, kale, broccoli, green beans, steel-cut oats, cherries, peppers, quinoa, beans, high in fiber. They're a complex, slow-digesting carbohydrate. And I want to talk briefly about fiber because that is a carbohydrate. It comes in two forms. Soluble, which means that it likes water and it turns into a gel when in contact, so it's found in oats, dried beans that are cooked, chia seeds. The benefit to fiber in general is it slows the transit time down in our guts, all right, so that we can absorb nutrients. That's why it provides a more balanced blood sugar and it fills you up, all right. Plus, it kind of feeds the good gut bacteria that we need. Plus, it helps to decrease cholesterol levels. So if you're somebody who has high cholesterol, which can be genetically predisposed, then you need to eat more fiber because the fiber will bind to that cholesterol and it will help pull it out of your body. That's why they recommend oats and cereal, but the downside to that is the cereal is full of sugar, so you wouldn't want to take that in. And eat steel cut oats over instant oats. All right, you're going to get even more fiber here. All right, insoluble fiber is fiber that's found in the plant wall. So I always think of celery because you can literally see, what's that face for? But you can see that fiber. Can you, the little strings in it? All right, so that's what comes to my mind. So it's found in the plant walls, and examples of that are celery, dark leafy greens, kale, you know, when you got all that veiny stuff in kale. So fruits and vegetable skins, don't peel your fruit, don't peel your potatoes. Eat those skins, all right? That's where your fiber is, all right? And daily amounts for women is 35 grams, men's 48 grams. An average would be 25, and probably if you're not eating enough vegetables, you're not getting enough fiber in your diet, all right? So.
Travis, what about fiber supplements like Bin Fiber or?
Those are good. Those are good, but I would initially first try to get whole food is a better source.
But it's hard because I've calculated that out.
It is difficult, isn't it?
I mean, you have to eat a boatload of stuff.
Well, and you should. I'm just kidding. A lot of lentils, a lot of spinach, a lot of spinach. Yeah, fiber. What I can say is, back when I was practicing at the bedside, I worked in endoscopy, so I did a lot of colonoscopies, and I know that the GI guys recommended, they have come out with like fiber cookies and the Benefiber and those kind of things. They highly recommend for best fiber supplement is to do the nasty Metamucil that's like a sandstorm in a glass, okay? That's what you should do. That because you're looking for that bulk that's in there. All right. So yeah, you can take that. That's what, you know. Sometimes people don't tolerate fiber very well. So if you have some underlying gut issues, like a little colitis or something like that, that fiber can send you into a whirlwind. So work your way into it.
I've noticed too that some of them have added sugars.
They do. They do.
Flavor.
So that's why, yeah, get back to that's with anything in life. When they start manipulating and making things flavored or so on and so forth, that starts going up. So, you know, you could go out and eat sawdust, I guess, if you wanted to, for the best. But, yeah. So the easiest way to do that is to, if you're going to use Metamucil, plain Metamucil, then mix it in 4 ounces of water, so it's going to be really bad, but drink that really fast, okay, and then follow with 4 ounces of clear water, all right? That way, that's a little bit better than mixing that up in 8 ounces, and you keep having to stir it and drink it and stir it and drink it, okay? But first, up your vegetables. Every meal, half your plate, all right? They can be cooked, they can be raw, they can be however, just get your vegetables in, okay? All right, so let's review real quick about fast digesting. So everybody understand that? I always think of Lucy and Ethel on the candy line. Do you remember? I think about that being what goes on in your body. So if all you're eating all the time are these, you know, you're eating a lot of rice and a lot of white potatoes and a lot of that stuff, then your pancreas and your liver are in there, and they're trying their best to keep up, and then they're shoving some of that off and storing it somewhere. And based on your goal, most people's goals, I'm assuming is weight loss, okay, or body composition improvement. Those are the type of carbohydrates that you want to put around your workout to replenish those stores, but focus on your complex carbs mainly. All right? So how much to eat? Well, there's no correct amount of carbs that's the same for everyone or even every day, all right? Because number one, factors to consider is body size. A bigger person needs more carbs than a petite person, all right? Lean mass, the more muscle mass you have on your body, the more glycogen you will store in your muscles, which can only be used for muscular activity, all right? That's the one thing to remember about your muscles. All right, so the more, this is why, ladies, men lose weight faster than we do. This is why men can eat more food than we can. They naturally have, they do. They naturally have more lean mass on them, so they can store more glycogen in their muscles that don't get put out on their body as fat. Okay? So ladies, what's that mean? That's right. We got to weight lift, all right? Because that, yeah, and we got to weight lift consistently, and we have to weight lift hard, and we have to, because we don't have the hormones that rapidly make muscle on our bodies. So, our activity level, how intense it is, the duration, and how often you are doing that, all right, has a bearing on the types of carbohydrates. Your age, unfortunately, unfortunately, for all of us, as we get older, even if you are working, right, except for these two here, you,
But they will be here one of these.
they will be, so remember this,
Some
all right?
starting now.
As we age, our tolerance for fast carbohydrates and where that stuff goes when we eat it changes, okay? So, I'm sorry to say that. It's just the way it is.
If you look at stuff, you gain weight too when you get over 50.
Yeah, it's like, are you talking about it? You're like, yeah. It's like,
Right,
somebody showed you chocolate, just let me rub it right there.
right. So, as we age, all the more important reason to lift weights, all right? And then genes. Of course, some of us are better carb tolerators than others. My mother, for example, was tall and thin. She ate all the time. And what's happening to my picture here? Oh,
Just push your cording on one end or the other, it's just a little loose somewhere. There you go,
is it good?
yes.
Oh, thank goodness. Thank God you're up here. Anyway, they can tolerate those kind of carbohydrates much better than people my size who are short and, you know, stocky. Anyway, and then intake of other nutrients. So what we eat with our carbohydrates can impact that as well. The protein and the fiber that we take in. And then really what your goals are. That should govern what your carbohydrate intake looks like, all right? If you have the goal, if you're one of those little skinny people that need to gain weight, then eat those fast digesting carbohydrates. Eat them when you work out if you need that for fuel. Endurance runners, they're another one, you know, a runner who has run their whole life and that's what they like doing. They can eat faster digesting carbohydrates as opposed to other people. So your goals really govern what you do. So important points to remember: slow digesting carbohydrates from whole food sources like vegetables, fruits, legumes, and whole grains help us to feel fuller longer, provide much needed fiber, vitamins, water, and antioxidants. They keep our blood sugar level and our insulin response good, and help to decrease cravings. So this kind of business with your blood sugar up and down is what induces cravings, all right, which is sometimes based on the types of carbs that you're eating. So when people talk to me about I'm craving, I have to ask, what are you don't have enough fiber, you're not eating enough vegetables, because they may be eating the right carbohydrates, but the fiber is not there to help, and the protein to help blunt that effect. All right, and slow digesting carbs should be the majority of your all's intake, okay? And then your fast digesting carbs are the ones you want to put around your exercise. Eat them when they're best utilized in your body. From whole food, they digest quickly, enter your bloodstream, raising that blood sugar up and causing that insulin response. And they stimulate your appetite. All right, they leave us less satisfied. Processed and refined are usually higher in sodium and chemicals. So when people talk about looking at their sodium intake, Are they eating a lot of processed packaged food? Because that's where the bulk of sodium is in our diet.